Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being part of our program. Here we are together again on the radio. And, you know, I monitor our email pretty closely. I read it myself. There's no middleman. Sometimes I forward things to other people for handling. But I know what people are saying. I know what people are writing about. I know what people are complaining about. I know what they care about. And the mail is a very good indicator of whether we're going in the right direction. And I've always said, when you write to me about something, like let's say a dozen people send me the same story, I know it's a story for this show. I'm not doing this as a public service. I'm in the giving the people what they want business. That's what I do. Sometimes there's stuff I talk about here, honestly. I do not understand your fascination with it. But it is not my job to understand your fascination with it. It is my job to indulge it. Now, there have been periods of time on this program where we were getting 1,000 emails an hour. For example, the summer I gave out the name of Kate Faber, Kobe Bryant's accuser. There were 1,000 emails an hour. I had done 150 television interviews in 1 week. So people who listen were writing to me, people who weren't listening were writing to me. The whole world was writing to me then. And that may have set a record for the most response to anything we ever did. But a dozen people sending me the same newspaper article generally indicates that this here's a topic. Okay. Well, the article I'm about to read to you now, you can stop sending it to me. I have received over 200 copies of this AP story, and they're now coming in at a rate of about 1 a minute. You can stop now. I've got the story in front of me. And there's no doubt I'm going to give the people what they want here. And what is heartwarming about this, and I don't use that in a sarcastic manner, I really mean it, is that you guys completely understand the show. You see a story and you know it would fit. Each one of you is convinced you're the first person to have seen it and said it to me. And I don't want you to ever stop doing that. If I get 1,000 or 5,000 or 100,000 copies of the same article, that's okay. Because it just indicates we're on the right track. It indicates that we're on the same wavelength here. But now you can stop sending this one. And here it is. This is the Associated Press, Dateline, Chicago. An appeals court said that a man can press a claim for emotional distress after learning. If you haven't seen this story, you're going to spit up blood when you hear this story, okay? If you're a Tom Leykis listener, you're going to flip. Yeah, emotional distress he can sue for after learning a former lover had used his sperm to have a baby. But he can't claim theft, the ruling said, because the sperm were hers to keep. Now, what would be unusual about using sperm to have a baby? That's how you have a baby, right? When you hear this story, if you haven't heard it, when you hear it. The ruling by the Illinois Appellate Court sends Dr. Richard O. Phillips' distress case back to trial court. Phillips accuses another doctor, Dr. Sharon Irons, of, quote, a calculated, profound, personal betrayal after their affair 6 years ago. Saying, and again, I'm reading a news story here. I'm not trying to titillate or pander. I'm simply reading the story from the Associated Press. The betrayal occurred, said Dr. Phillips, after their affair 6 years ago. He said she secretly kept semen after they'd had oral sex, then used it to get pregnant. How many of you, by the way, called me to say I was crazy when I started telling you that broads were digging into condoms and impregnating themselves and then trying to claim child support from guys? And I told you to use the Tabasco sauce or the habanero sauce to give them a nice surprise. Well, now, what do you do about this? Wait till women hear that they could try to pull this one off. Now, you're going to say, well, how do you know it had to do with that? Maybe they had sex. Listen to this. Says here he didn't find out about the child for nearly 2 years. How many times have we heard that story? And that was when Dr. Irons, the chick in question, her mouth with amazing storage capacity, filed a paternity suit. DNA test confirmed Phillips was the father, according to court papers. Get this, boys. Phillips, I hope you're listening, all you boys who are careless about this stuff, listen to this. Phillips was ordered to pay about $800 a month in child support, according to Irons' attorney, Enrico Mirabelli. And I tell you, no doubt. Phillips sued Irons, claiming he has had trouble eating and sleeping and has been haunted by what he calls feelings of being trapped in a nightmare, court papers state. Irons responded that her alleged actions, get this, this is the woman who, she said that her alleged actions weren't truly extreme and outrageous. That's a quote. And that Phillips's pain wasn't bad enough to merit a lawsuit. The circuit court had agreed and dismissed Phillips' lawsuit in 2003. Can you imagine that? By the way, there's various versions of this story, and it's left out of this story for some reason. I want to make this clear, because I've read the story again. More than 200 listeners sent this story in. They never had sex. They never had intercourse. This was a brief dating relationship in which the parties engaged in oral sex 4 times. According to Dr. Phillips, that was the extent of their sex lives together. There was no intercourse. But then it says here that the higher court ruled that if Phillips' story is true, Irons, quote, deceitfully engaged in sexual acts which no reasonable person would expect could result in pregnancy. To use plaintiff's sperm in an unorthodox, unanticipated manner, yielding extreme consequences. The judges backed the lower court decision to dismiss the fraud and theft claims. I don't agree with that. This is fraud. I don't know about theft, but it's fraud. Now, the judge agreed with Irons that she didn't steal the sperm. No, she didn't steal it. It was delivered. Delivered to her. But this isn't fraud? This is not fraud? The decision said she asserts that when plaintiff delivered his sperm, it was a gift, an absolute and irrevocable transfer of title to property from a donor to a donee. There was no agreement that the original deposit would be returned upon request. Can you believe these quotes? We're talking about sperm. Phillips is representing himself in the case. He could not be reached for comment. Mirabelli said, this is the attorney for the broad who pulled this scam off, allegedly. There's a 5-year-old child here. Imagine how a child feels when your father says he feels emotionally damaged by your birth. Who cares? If this child was born this way, why doesn't mommy sit her son down and tell him how he was created? No, mommy had you in her mouth, honey. And pretty soon you were growing in her stomach. Go ahead. Tell them. So many questions are raised here. I'll just throw a couple out at you. One, if there's no intercourse, should a man be liable for child support under any circumstances? Assuming there's no intercourse. Because remember, we told you about the guys who are throwing condoms away in the trash can. Women are going to the bathroom. I'm just going to go in and freshen up. And then they take the condoms out of the trash can and inject themselves. If there's no intercourse, should a man be liable for child support? Give you an example. There you are, boys. Let's just give you an example. I'm going to clean this up so it's clean as a whistle, so you'll have to read between the lines to get what I'm saying, but you'll get what I'm saying, okay? You're with a chick. She's just friends. She won't put out. She doesn't want to have sex with you. But her biological time clock is ticking. Ever had one of those friendships? We've gotten calls from these guys all the time. You know, you have a female friend, and the two of you travel together, and you sleep in the same bed. You stay in a motel, you sleep in the same bed. And she's wearing flannel pajamas, and you're wearing boxer shorts. And the two of you are, I don't know, driving up the coast, or going away to Acapulco because you don't have anybody else to go with. You're pals. The two of you go. So there you are. It's early in the morning, and she looks over, and she sees that, you're pitching a tent. So she reaches over and decides to make the volcano erupt, okay? You're sleeping. Two years later, your good pal delivers papers to your door saying, guess what? You're a father. Because I took the lava flow and I made judicious use of it. Should that guy have to pay child support? But this guy says he never had sex with this woman. They had oral sex 4 times. Now he's paying $800 a month in child support. It's outrageous. Outrageous. All right, now we have to take a break here. Coming up, we're going to talk to the attorney for Dr. Sharon Irons. We're going to get some of the specifics of this case, and then we'll take some of your telephone calls. You don't want to go anywhere. 1-800-5800.
You're such an OG pimp. I love your style, you know. What you teach is like how I live, you know. That's my lifestyle, thank God.
The Tom Leykis Show. Tom Leykis Show. 1-800-5800-TOM is our telephone number. All right. You've heard the story we're talking about. And with us from Chicago is the attorney for Dr. Sharon Irons, Rico Mirabelli. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Now, look, I've been written about in the newspaper, and I know that many times facts are left out, or a slant exists, or whatever. And even the story I'm looking at leaves out some key facts that I know are a part of the case, or at least key claims that were made.
Tom, it leaves out the other half of the story.
Well, that's why we have you here, to fill us in. Now, what actually happened from your client's point of view?
Well, what actually happened is that both of the parties here are doctors. They met in medical school. And after 12 years of being friends, they started an intimate relationship, which included sexual relations of the normal type that normally produces babies.
All right, now let me just clarify something here. As we go, I'm going to need to clarify as we go. Dr. Phillips, according to one of the stories I read, supposedly claimed that they never had intercourse. Did he make that claim?
He made that claim in his lawsuit, and when the case was dismissed, the appellate court basically reviewed it, and last night the appellate court issued an opinion that said, you've said the proper things. We're going to give you a chance to prove it. We're not saying it's true. We're not saying it's not true. You're going to get your day in court, Dr. Phillips. And so they reinstated this count for intentional infliction of mental distress, saying, if everything you say is true, then yes, that's outrageous conduct, doctor. And people should be outraged. Mm-hmm. But they've never heard the other half of the story, which is what the man said is absolutely untrue. He's never going to be able to prove this because it's not true.
So he lied.
I'm trying to be a little more sensitive.
I'm trying to be honest.
Correct, so I'll just say what he said is not true. Hey, Tom, my client is a African-American, attractive, professional female who's obviously educated. She's a doctor. She doesn't have to trick another doctor into getting her pregnant. She doesn't need the money. This isn't where she's trying to trap some NBA basketball player who makes $10 million in a year with some kind of turkey baster. Okay, this is not how it happened. They had a relationship. They planned to get married. He was 50 years old, and right before they were supposed to get married, no, pardon the expression, he pulled out and said, I'm not getting married. I can't make the commitment. And she sued him for paternity, and then he came back and said, I never had intercourse with her. She deceived me. She harvested my sperm, is what he alleged.
Now, you say she didn't need the money, but she did sue him for the $800 a month she's received.
Oh, well, actually, I've come into the case second lawyer. $800 is just an initial amount. I mean, and it's not about the money, Tom.
Well, of course
every child is entitled to support. So the mother brought the lawsuit, and as she said to someone today in my presence, I was hoping that when I brought the lawsuit, he would finally acknowledge his daughter, that he would sort of step up to the plate and accept his parental responsibility, and what I got was the shock of my life. He turned around and said we never had intercourse, and he said I gave him oral sex for the purpose of getting his sperm so I could impregnate myself. She said she was absolutely devastated when she read what his lawyers wrote in this lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't. It doesn't get much lower than this, than to turn around to some lady that you're saying one day you're going to marry her, you've known her for 12 years, you're best of friends, and the next day saying, you deceived me and you tricked me into getting pregnant. My client didn't need to trick anybody. She didn't need his money to support herself, but she's entitled to the money to support the child, Tom.
Let me ask you a question. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a moron with a microphone, and I readily admit that.
Such honesty on the radio. It's hard to believe.
I know. Well, you should come to L.A. sometime. But nonetheless, all right, let me ask you a question based on the stories that are out there. Because, again, over 200 listeners sent me this story because they thought this was an important story to talk about. Just a theoretical question, let's not take it away from this case. Let's just take it to some generic case.
Okay.
If somebody did what Dr. Phillips alleged, is there any precedent for that? Is that person liable for child support?
The answer would be yes.
Really?
Yes, because under the law, and Tom, I can't believe it's any different in California as it is here, how the child is conceived is not the issue. In other words, if there's a hole in the condom, or the mom lied and said, I can't get pregnant, or I'm on the pill, the child is never made to suffer for the acts of the adult. But let's take it a step further. Even if he can be held for the child support, he has a cause of action against the mother for trying to deceive him through this intentional infliction of mental distress.
Has anyone ever won a case like that?
Not to my knowledge. In Tom, I took over the case from a prior lawyer, so the case was in progress. I took over the appeal. In my limited research, and I've been doing this 23 years doing divorce work, Tom, I have never heard of a case where someone won intentional infliction of mental distress because claiming I got tricked into giving birth to your child.
Because the reality is it's the one legal fraud in America. You can defraud somebody. You can say, oh, no, I'm on the pill. Oh, no, the doctor says I can't get pregnant. Oh, no, I've got a coil. I've got my tubes tied, whatever.
Right.
And when you get pregnant, it's like, tough luck.
So bad, so
I lied. So what? Hey, it's legal.
Tom, think about it. You can still sue the lady. You may not win, but the child needs to be supported because the child is the least culpable of everybody involved. I mean, guys out there, they have to be very careful. Every time you have sex with someone, not your wife, you may take a risk of getting somebody pregnant. The
one we talk about on the air is the one they are warning NBA players about. You may or may not have read about this. But at the beginning of every NBA season, it's training camp. Before the season begins, they send various experts around I believe it's sponsored by the Players Union and the NBA, to speak to players about various problems that will befall them as players, especially the rookies. Talk to them about people who try to defraud them out of their money, people who will try to get them into business schemes.
People who will try to talk to them, be their friends so they know if somebody's injured on the team so they can get the point spread and have a better angle. Gambling,
drugs, and alcohol things. And there's one new thing the last few years they've been warning players about, and that is women who have sex with NBA players who wear a condom. The guy removes the condom, drops it in the trash can of the bathroom, and the woman says, "I'll be right back. I'm just going to freshen up." She dips into the trash can, takes the condom out, and inserts the contents into herself, and later on sues the player for child support. Now,
Tom, can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
I was, as a matter of fact, a certified NBA agent about 5 years ago, and I've heard this story. And at the time I sat in there and they told us as agents to warn our players of these things, warn of the promiscuous young lady who's looking for the paycheck.
Yeah.
I shook my head saying, theoretically that could happen. Realistically, this is an urban myth. I don't know of any NBA player, any football player, any baseball player where a woman has grabbed the condom and impregnated herself.
Well, we just said,
I told my players, if you do it, throw the condom away. Make sure you flush it. Do something.
You might find it interesting then to know that we decided to test this. So I advise men to keep a bottle of Tabasco sauce at home, and anytime you throw a condom away, put a couple of drops of Tabasco inside the condom, and then put it in the trash can. And then, if nothing else, because Tabasco won't kill sperm, to my knowledge, if nothing else, you'll hear an ear-piercing shriek from the other room, and you'll know you've been had.
Or that you're attempting to be had. And that time, that's ingenious. I like that. But, you know, what happens if the guy remembers the condoms but forgets the Tabasco sauce?
Well,
what does he do?
That's a problem. But guess what? We've had
too many things to remember, Tom.
We've had at least 3 guys call up and report that they got the ear-piercing screech. 2 of them were taken to court and sued. These women sued them for inflicting pain on them. Both cases were thrown out.
I would hope so, Tom. I mean, I would hope so.
But there are women trying to do this, Tom, even if it wasn't to an NBA player.
I don't, Tom, that may be true. My client is certainly not one of them. She does not fall in that category of a woman who needs to get pregnant to get a paycheck. And I don't know who these other ladies are, so maybe I'm going to get sued for making that statement. But any woman who would, do that for the sole purpose of getting that semen, to deceive them, yeah, they could end up in a lawsuit. But then, I can only talk about my case, Tom. Theoretically, we can be here all day, but
of course,
this is not. You'd have to know my lady. You'd have to know what the facts are. And the nice thing about this lawsuit, Tom, if I may, we're looking forward to it because he has so tarnished my client's reputation. She's now 40 years old. She's an internist. She's a physician. She has a reputation. She lectures. You know what this is going to do to her? We need to go to court, and we need to knock this case out to restore her reputation.
Followed by a big fat lawsuit for damages, no doubt.
Yeah, she's devastated by this. And you know the whole thing, Tom, that maybe your listeners aren't talking about, but what about this 5-year-old daughter who says, my daddy's suing my mommy because I was born? How does that make a kid feel?
All right, we're going to take a break. Can you hang in with us for a little while?
I'd love to, Tom.
Okay. Rico Mirabelli is the attorney in this case. You've all been writing to me about this case. Dr. Sharon Irons of Chicago and Dr. Richard Phillips. And this is Dr. Irons' attorney. She says they did have sex. She says this claim that they had oral sex only and she saved the sperm and used it later and impregnated herself, preposterous. All right? So you have an opportunity to talk to attorney Rico Mirabelli as we continue.
Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866.
You need fat at certain places of the body.
Yeah, right. And if you got big boobs, come on in.
It's the Tom Leykis Show.
Tom Leykis Show. 1-800-5800-TOM. We are here with attorney Rico Mirabelli. And your telephone calls at 1-800-5800-TOM. KJ on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hey, Tom, how you doing, man?
Okay.
Hey, this attorney, he's got to be insane to represent this lady because just because she's a doctor, he's saying that she doesn't need the extra money. She's just like any other bitch, man. Just wants to get as much as she can get. She's trying to milk the system.
Rico, is that a fair statement?
Tom, I'm not even going to respond to that kind of profanity.
KJ, thank you for the call. Caesar on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Tom, I love you. Mr. Rico.
Yes, sir.
If she's not out for the quick buck, why did it take so long to surface?
It did. The suit was filed years ago, but there was a number of legal roadblocks that the father threw up, and it took 4 years of litigation to get a judgment for paternity. So she brought the suit shortly after the birth.
Okay, another question. What made you decide to take this case?
What made me decide to take it?
Right.
It's normally what I do. I do paternity and divorce cases, and she wanted to change lawyers, thought it was going too slow, and wanted somebody to be more aggressive. The appeal was already filed when I took the case, and then the decision just came out yesterday.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Like the last caller said, it's a bunch of crap. She's out for a quick buck. You know it. Tom knows it. I know it. Every other guy in Southern California knows it. Just a typical bitch. I'm a victim of a condom poker. Didn't find out until 2 years after. Thank God nothing became of it. I can't believe it. You are ridiculous. You're ridiculous. You're a pussy. Hang your balls back up. Take me out with a bullet to the head, Tom.
Caesar, I'll be all too happy to oblige. Here you go.
What was that?
You want to be taken out with a bullet to the head, so I gave it to him.
I should... Oh, he wanted
No, he wanted it. So I gave it to him.
I love these guys who can insult me, but I like to see these guys face-to-face talk like that. That's ridiculous.
Casey on the Tom Leykis Show for attorney Rico Mirabelli. Hello.
How's it going, Tom?
Okay.
First of all, this guy should be ashamed of himself for representing this woman. He should be doing something more productive in life with his education. I just have a question. Maybe...
Wait, what do you do with your education?
I'm slowly going to school, putting myself in. I mean, don't worry about me. This ain't about me.
Oh, it's not about you. You're going to call up and make stupid statements.
You let me speak, sir?
Say something intelligent, okay? Try saying something intelligent.
Do something productive. Stop making rich guys pay for kids they don't want in the first place.
The rich guys should be having sex with women.
There's a reason why this took 4 years in litigation, because he does, you know, this is crap, and this is how you bloodsuckers make money.
We make money.
Now listen, this guy...
Tom, is this why you're calling
No, hey, listen.
I'm putting up whoever calls in here.
It's good. This is good stuff.
Now listen.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead. Say something like civil.
If she makes so much money, why does she need child support?
She doesn't need it.
Why does she need to take this guy? Why did she even have to bring it into his life? He obviously didn't want it. What's her purpose? Because she's vindictive, sir. And you know it. And you're making money off of it.
You know, I love when you cast these opinions with knowing none of the facts.
My father was taken to court 8 times by my mother.
There we go. Okay.
He won 7 times.
Now I understand where you're coming from. You're entitled to your opinion, sir. You're entitled to your opinion. I don't insult you. I don't need to sit here and let you insult me.
Casey, thank you. This is Bob on the Tom Leykis Show for attorney Rico Mirabelli. Hello.
Yeah, Tom.
Bob.
All right, we're on the air. First of all, I'm calling primarily to clarify. I've been doing exclusive family law work in Los Angeles, Orange County areas for 26 years. Something that has not come up and has not been raised is, if this is a defense, Tom, I mean, just by way of example, okay, in any paternity case, any man could allege, hey, I got oral sex only, never had intercourse, and then what it comes down to is his word against hers, correct? I mean, bottom line, it comes down to his word against hers.
That's right.
Unfortunately, his burden of proof is clear and convincing. All right? So he has the burden. And if it's a he said, she said situation, he loses. Now, you give me these following facts, and I'll win the case. The day after the alleged oral sex, she took the sperm, and I don't know biologically if she can inseminate herself. I honestly don't. But if you can show that the next day she went to a doctor and got inseminated, I guarantee you, I can't guarantee anything in California law, but what would happen, and the attorney representing this black doctor is correct, the child is innocent, he would have to pay the child support anyway, but I can almost guarantee that any court would give him back in damages an amount that would equal or exceed the amount that he would have to pay in support. In other words, it would be offset. You understand the dilemma here, Tom?
Yes, Bob. Now, let me ask you a question. How often do men win lawsuits like that in California?
Well, this would be one of first impression, and it's a proof issue. It can't be he said, she said. If it's he said, she said, the guy loses.
But when it's sex, when it's sex, it's almost always he said, she said, unless you could figure out which doctor performed artificial insemination and then get him to testify against his own patient.
Well, he would have to. He would have to. I can subpoena the medical records. I get the records. What's the judge going to think then? He's going to give him back more than she would have to pay.
And that would be assuming that she went to her regular gynecologist or her regular doctor. I'm sure if somebody wanted to pull off a fraud like that, they know enough to go to another doctor, and then that's it, done.
Absolutely, she could get away with it. I mean, why don't these morons flush the condom down the toilet?
Well, I tell them all the time.
Why don't they do like I did? I'm a single parent of 3. Get a vasectomy.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a number, now, of course, in this case, we're not talking about men that age, but there's a number of young men out there who try to get vasectomies. Doctors refuse to perform them because they say they're too young. Well, they can't get mommy's approval. Mommy being the wife or the girlfriend or whatever.
Well, I know for a fact they are reversible now, too. So, I mean, I would, under any circumstances, get a vasectomy, then all of this becomes moot, doesn't it?
No, go ahead, Rich. I'm sorry. Rico, I'm sorry.
Good. I was saying that I'm listening to the lawyer. What he's saying is correct. It's a matter of proof. If he can, the appellate court said, if you can prove your case, you can get damages. We're saying he can't prove it. Obviously, we have a different opinion, but the child's going to get support regardless.
I would say there's almost no case where you could actually prove this, because generally when people have sex, there's 2 people around. That's it, the 2 people who are complaining against each other.
I mean, it's a novel, listen, this is a novel defense, and the lawyer that you just had, I believe his name was Bob, in 26 years, he's never seen a case like that. So when he says first impression, that means it's the first time it's come up. I've done 23 years of law here, and I've never seen a defense like this. So it's a very novel defense, and you know what? If he can prove it, then he's entitled to get damages. We're just saying we don't think he can prove it because there's no independent. He never alleged any evidence. He just simply said, this is what happened, and never made another statement, and the appellate court said, okay, fine, try and prove it now. We'll give you a day in court. There's nothing wrong with that, and I have every right to defend her.
All right, we'll continue with attorney Rico Mirabelli from Chicago. Don't go anywhere. Tom Leykis.
1-800-5800-TOM.
Tom does not tell us men how to think. Tom simply verbalizes. Hey, listen, bitch, now I'm talking.
He told you how to think.
Here's how conversation works. You get to talk and I listen, then I talk and you think about something else.
The Tom Leykis Show.